Hi everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of MTPredictor. Today I'd like to look at a great example of what I call my Holy Grail trade setup. It's where we get a TS3 or TS1 or setup like this, that rather than going to the first target, we actually go to the typical wave 3 WPT target, and as such, rather than just making, in this example, 2.8 hour profit, we actually make nearer 6.6, 6.5 hour. It's a great example of where the ABC pattern, which is ABC here into our TS3, actually unfolds as a larger degree wave 2. And this is actually my favourite setup in the MTPredictor software program, and the reason I actually developed the software in the first place just over 10 years ago now. So let's have a quick look at this. So the first criteria for our Holy Grail trade setup is that the start of the sequence, if I go back, here we have an ABC. If I put the Elliott waves on, this ABC pattern here, ABC, is unfolding off a prior swing which comes up here, and we're assuming that this swing is a wave 1. This ABC down into here is a wave 2. Now to decide that, we have to look at the start of the sequences back here. Now this all hinges around whether this start here starts at what we call an important point, in other words, off a larger degree support zone. This is actually a 3-minute chart of the YM on July the 6th, Wednesday, July the 6th, and it's what we're looking at in our customer training webinar. So this example I'm talking about was actually unfolding in real time, and I was talking about this in real time to our customers. So let's first look at this low here to see whether it's coming off good support. Well, on the 3-minute chart, I can click on the DP, come back to the prior pivot, click on the DP from here, and you can see that yes, indeed, on the 3-minute chart we had DP support. But to make this even stronger, let's go to a larger degree time frame, which in this case is the 15-minute chart, and here we can see that this was the same low. So in other words, we had an important low here which was giving us a TS3 buy setup, so we had strong support here. Therefore, if I zoom in a bit, we had the initial rally coming up here, the initial correction down here, which is where our TS3 buy setup was, would be considered a wave 2, and therefore we're looking for a strong wave 3 rally off there. So that's the first criteria, is that the start of the sequence, which is what we had here, was at a larger degree, in this case 15-minute support zone. So as we had that, when we come back to our 3-minute chart, if I come back to the NQ, and I'll just clear the chart off, I'll just leave our DP on there, so we just have our good support zone back here. What we can do is when we place our analysis on, we can then have confidence that this buy setup is going to go further than our initial targets. We also notice that the STF is actually red, so standard traders would actually not consider this, because red means a downtrend, but we all know that indicators are lagging, so therefore as an advanced trader you can look at our DP and WPT supports. These are what we call leading indicators, and using the leading indicators we've already seen that this low was at good support. Therefore the assumption is this is a wave 1 up into here, this is a wave 2 down into our TS3 setup, which unfolds as an ABC. Therefore we're looking to play for the typical wave 3 WPT target, which as you can see is on the chart here ready for you. And to analyze this, we can just put the risk reward on at this level, and as you can see the target would be up here at approximately 6.5 or 6.5 R. In other words, using our position sizing, which we tend to risk 2%, or if you're a newer trader 1%, in this case on a $20,000 sample account would be risking $390, so a profit of potentially $2,500 would be 6.5 times the initial risk. So that's where we get that. At the time of the webinar yesterday, the market was hovering around these levels here, but I did actually say to the customers that because we had good support back here, 1, 2, the assumption was that this is what I call my Holy Grail trade setup, and therefore we should be aiming for the typical wave 3 WPT. So let's see how this unfolded. Well, look at this. The market rallied up beautifully, and in fact, if I scroll forward to the end of the day, in fact, our profit target was right at the high of the day. Notice that our TS3 buy setup was actually at the low of the day. So here we had an MTPredictor trade setup that we amended using our Holy Grail rule set that enabled us to buy the YM at basically the low of the day. We then held the trade through to take profits at basically the high of the day. I mean, you can't do better than that as a day trader. So this is why I wanted to have a look at this, because not only was it a great example of the Holy Grail trade setup, but also produced a great profit. Just to show you what I mean about the typical wave 3 WPT, if I now click on major Elliott waves, choose swing high or low, come up to here, you can see how the Elliott wave routine in the software also pinpointed this for you. So this is what I mean by the initial swing up here being a larger degree wave 1, which the software found, came back down here, which unfolded as an ABC, which is our TS3 buy, into a larger degree wave 2. Therefore the rally coming up here we assume is going to be a larger degree wave 3, and as we have already looked at, the target is the typical wave 3, and as you can see, that nailed the high of the day beautifully. So a great example of our Holy Grail trade setup, where basically we look for a large degree support zone at the start of the sequence, which is what we had on the 3-minute and also the 15-minute, which I've shown you. We then have an initial rally up, which you assume is wave 1. We have an initial correction down into a wave 2. We then aim for the wave 3 rally. And if I put the excuse me, the analysis on again from our automatic setup here, you can see that this indeed gave us these targets. Adding the risk reward on again allowed us to have our profit of whoops, I missed that. Our profit of approximately 6.5R. So as we can see, an absolutely brilliant example of the MTPredictor Holy Grail trade setup. And in fact, as I said at the beginning of this webinar, this is my favorite trade setup, because taking a trade off the end of a wave 2 to get you in right at the start of a wave 3. Wave 3s are normally the longest and strongest moves in the Elliott wave sequence, so in fact this is the best trade you can have that allows you to get in to a trade that has potentially the largest profit, as we can see here, $2,500, for the smallest risk, as we can see here, just under the $400. So this trade setup, in my opinion, is one of the best trades you consider, that has the lowest risk for the highest profit potential, and it's basically what MTPredictor was designed to find, say almost 10 years ago when I first built the software. So a great example of this unfolding yesterday on the 3-minute YM, and as I said as well during the webinar, this was brilliant because we were actually looking at this live in our customer training webinar yesterday.